Okay. Well, I guess
Oh,
there you
Wade's.
go.
Oh, there he is.
Hey Josh, are you gonna do introductions and stuff today, or you want me to do them, or you want Josh Allen to do them, or do you care?
Yeah, I we have a small group today, and that's good because most of us but I know that Wade and Dave have been working together at Rochester. Correct me, Wade, what's the university? The
University of Alabama is where I went to.
what's the Rochester project?
That's a different one, we doing some work on some projects around Auburn,
All right.
Okay.
Alabama.
So yeah,
Hey
and
Josh, what? I can introduce him if you want me to.
please, thank you.
All right. Hey, Wade Burcham's with us today. Wade has been a close friend. He's been on the margins of stream restoration now for about 10 or 15 years, doing a lot of work in coastal Alabama. A lot of people don't even know that there is a coastal Alabama. And now he's doing a lot of work related to infrastructure and utilities work. And then he's combined that with stream restoration, trying to look at stream restoration in a little bit different way related to risk resiliency and assessment. He's been a close friend of mine now for almost 10 years, I think. We've been able to work alongside of each other on projects, but never really on the same project until recently. And last September, he started out on his own adventure in his own company that he calls uh, let's see, 50/20 engineering, right? And 50/20 engineering is a reference to Genesis 50:20 that says, what you have meant for evil, God has meant turned to good. So it's the idea that we have life changes sometimes that aren't what we want, but God is so faithful through there. And he uses his engineering skills to kind of remind him of the faithfulness of God in that. And with this today, we're going to talk about kind of just his experiences in urban stream restoration and what it means to kind of create a clean water future as I'm reading from the screen, and naturalized stabilization methods, another choice to consider. So in other words, how do we look at nature-based solutions that aren't always exactly what we call stream restoration? So with that, Wade, anything else that I need to tell you? Your favorite color is
No, blue. Yeah.
blue. No, you're wrong. No. All right, go ahead, Wade.
All right. Thank you. So this naturalized stabilization measures, we've done a ton of work around the Gulf Coast, and it started out calling it stream restoration, but you really couldn't call it stream restoration because there wasn't anything natural about it. So we kind of struggled with what to call it. So Greg Jennings actually come up with, we're stabilizing everything, and it's naturalized sort of. So why don't we call it that? So that's kind of what I'm speaking to, some sort of green type things, but they're not necessarily natural. And that came out of around I don't know, 2008 or so. There were a lot of geomorphic type reference designs put in. There were colossal failures in that area, and I'm talking about nearly taking away a interstate. And I think the that was what it was blamed on, but I think it was probably just not. There were some other things. It wasn't the design method at all. It was some other things that happened, but there almost during that time there was you couldn't really even say that you were applying maybe Royston concepts or anything like that, because in that area there have been so many failures, nobody wanted to have anything to do with it. So we got quite a bit of money during the oil spill, and we wanted to do something uh, that would bring ecological uplift. But Jake Gibbs, one of the who I was working with at the time, he always used to say before every meeting, "This thing better not waller up at the bottom of the hill," and that's the way almost all of them happening. So he said, whatever you do, it cannot fail under any circumstances. So that's kind of where I come from. So I'm giving that big, huge disclaimer to let you know, hey, really respect everybody on the call. I know you all do real stream restoration. This is more naturalized, and it's coming from perspective of somebody that's kind of recovering gray engineer who wants to be green. And I do know people pick up these YouTube videos, and it's probably more relevant to somebody like me that uh, that uh, most of my experience has been putting in very low maintenance gray things, you and now I'm starting to see the benefit of green things. Um, Another thing, I've got some developing country experience, help out with EMI, and if you ever want to be a part of using your skills in developing country, maybe helping somebody else out, but it definitely help you out because it kind of stretches you. If you ever want to do anything like that, just catch me and I can connect you with some people. A lot of these projects were funded by NIFWIF from that oil spill money and down in Mobile Bay. And I'm going to talk about three practices here: grow socks, micro pools, and regenerative stormwater conveyance structures. Again, probably all you are could probably better present this than I can, but that this is probably the thing that I know the most about and wanted to present to you all. And we're just trying to contrast this with traditional stabilization methods that we all know. Sort of the hard construction that's real strong when you first get there, but it kind of loses strength over time versus a green or naturalized stabilization. This is a stream, and it looks really green, but there's nothing natural about it. It's at the bottom of about 2,000 feet of 100% paved of surfaces, and it drops off into a golf course. And in that golf course, they have the stream going around in almost circles. 90 multiple 90-degree bends, absolutely no sediment renourishment from upstream. So this is not natural. And they had a concrete channel that they took out. They attempted a restoration project. It failed, and so they needed something here that would fit a core nationwide 27 permit, uh, and also snake around their course. It feels like that's a big green. You got plenty of room, but that was a very confined area due to their requirements. And this here again looks green, but there's literally 2 tons of steel holding that thing together right there. This is all uh, uh, turf reinforcement mat, and it's held in place by metal stakes, very extremely high shear stresses here. But it does have that strength of a concrete channel, yet it is more sustainable. There's a floodplain connection. It's regenerative. It grows over time, and it has that aesthetic value too. So the traditional mesh methods. There's a lot of good reasons to use traditional methods. One of the ones I like most is if there's a problem, it's almost never seen that if there's a failure with a concrete pipe, there's a problem with the concrete pipe. It's not the engineer. The opposite is if a natural measure, there's a problem, it's not the product, it is the engineer. Just the opposite. And you got a lot of people that can do these projects take much less time. It's sort of for me in this area, it's sort of the standard by which you measure everything else by. So if it costs a lot, that's just how much a project costs. There's nothing to compare it with, and that you get kind of a pass on a lot of things. Some of the disadvantages, as you know, they weaken over time. They're low maintenance, but they're not no maintenance. Concrete ditch still requires maintenance. I do this other presentation where I say, is low impact design, is it really low impact design, or is it just conventional engineering, because most of the time, initial capital, it costs less, and most of the time, it's more desired product, but they always get you on the maintenance. So I went around to 4 cities, and I asked them where they did a lot of maintenance. How much maintenance do you put in traditional measures versus natural measures? And I think the quote that just really described it all is, hey, we don't maintain our LID infrastructure just like we don't maintain our traditional infrastructure. So a lot of the places where I'm at, the concrete ditches are falling apart. There's more water that goes under the ditches than above them. There's actually fish that sometimes swim in between the cracks and they fail. But again, that's not seen as a lack of maintenance. They in fact probably need more maintenance than the others. The previous picture I showed of the golf course, our biggest problem on it was trying to get people not to maintain it. So they would always want to go in and cut these natural looking areas and make them look industrially, like an industrial landscape. And that was echoed also by these cities I talked to, that just trying to train their staff not to maintain these low impact design or natural measures were one of the biggest problems they had, was just please quit over maintaining, I guess you would say. And the traditional thought of hard techniques, but they're not hard. They fall apart. We talked about some of the other things, but the advantages of a naturalized stabilization measure, they just get stronger over time. Another thing is, and you'll see two projects in here that were emergency projects that because of permitting, you couldn't have done these projects in the time frame they wanted unless you use something that would allow a nationwide permit. So that worked out good. They dissipate energy as opposed to creating energy, and anytime you can get a connection to the floodplain, it's going to be more sustainable. The first maybe little product I was wanting to talk about is grow socks. And it's got a long name to it, but basically they're just dirt bags. I mean, that's what it comes down to. And this is how sometimes they're delivered. The dirt stays in these bags. It's very good quality control. So a lot of times they get delivered to the site, they're already growing grass or beginning to. So they sprout up very fast. You can have very good quality control of what kind of seeds you put in there, everything else, and you can use these for a variety of different methods.
Wait, are
Silt
those
fence,
biodegradable?
are they biodegradable?
Right. So they break
Um,
down over time, or is it like plastic?
uh, they're not plastic, but let me show you a picture over here. The geogrid is plastic, so the geogrid that goes back in the slope is
Right.
plastic.
Right.
The
Just like you would a
the
retaining
bags
wall.
themselves are a fabric type material. They're photodegradable, so they will degrade over time,
Okay.
but it's a long time.
Yep.
So definitely if you have it in direct sunlight, they'll break down.
Okay.
Does that make sense?
Yes, sir.
Yeah, so this first project, we had a really high visible project. It was just a small little area, but we couldn't get it stabilized. It doesn't, this picture doesn't show justice to it, but it's about a 6 foot vertical drop, and we had uh, every national estuary program director in the country come to visit this site, and we needed something like immediately stabilized. So we put in these grow socks, and you can see that they kind of describe it as they explode in growth, and we were able to keep them on that vertical slope by using GeoGrid and then using duckbill anchors to kind of plaster it there. And this it did stabilize the project. And right after this, we had 17 inches in 24 hours, and that was really two rainfall events that happened. And the roadway to this project washed away, but this project was still there. This is a non-MSE wall, so this is if your slope can stand up and you just need the stability on the surface, this is one way to do it. And again, you stack those bags in there. You can bring those bags in by hand or on a four-wheeler or a gator or something like that.
Wait, do you fill the bags on site or they always get delivered as being filled?
You can do it both ways, but I've always on these projects I get them filled beforehand.
Well, fine.
Yeah.
Imagine that is a considerable, like a higher cost to have them pre-filled.
Yeah, but for me, getting good topsoil is nearly impossible. You know,
Okay.
and
That makes sense.
so you won't these projects you won't. I mean, that's really what you're buying to me is the topsoil that will stay there.
Right.
So even if I could fill them on site, I probably wouldn't because I wouldn't trust the topsoil, you know, that I get. But I do have a very high trust in this topsoil. So here it is, what it looks like post development, and you know you can't even see the wall there, and you know in this state it won't. Yeah, I don't think it will degrade over time. You don't have problems with like snakes getting stuck in it and stuff. How some of the erosion control blanket does. But when it grows up like this, it almost works as a um, root reinforcement. This measure was about $15 per square foot face, and that was in place.
And you could
And the
do
roots go
woody,
down through it as well as out of it, right? So,
Yeah.
yes. It'll
and you can do
grow
woody
forward.
and herbaceous, like woody root systems and stuff don't affect the integrity of the stabilization.
No, it helps it in my opinion. Yeah.
Awesome. That's great.
Yeah, so here's another project that was pretty urgent. It was a power structure that was they were about to lose. They had took it down. This was a whitewater area. Interesting, this water here varied by temperature, the elevation. So it's a real cold day, they would run the dam upstream, and we would have to, you know, get out of the stream real fast. But this was one where we had 2 months, start to finish. This was low bid to have this in place. It was an emergency project, and the only way that you could do it was either with sheet pile walls or something like this grow socks, and we did this. This was a low bid, so this was not anything that it was not a stream restoration per se. Here is what those stream banks look like. Some of the vegetation on the left, you can see kudzu roots, and on the right, you can see grass. So this was a lot of invasives, and you can see the difference those grass roots make versus just the tubers that the kudzu makes. And here is the mechanically stabilized wall. It was near vertical wall that's sort of exaggerated, but we were able to get it in very fast, and again it doesn't even look like a wall,
Wow.
but there's it's nothing natural about it, but it's kind of got that natural feel to
It's
it.
green.
Yeah.
Hey,
And that's go ahead.
Oh, I had a question. Yeah, so this is it. This is the utility's property, or is it someone's property that the utility has an easement?
It's an easement, but their easement just as well say it's their property. They can do they
Right.
have yeah.
So is this power line the same entity that is doing the dam releases?
It is.
And they got NIFWIF funding to fix it, right?
Causing their own problem. They got a grant.
Well, no,
No,
what I really like is, the NIFWIF enables them to see how, like, in this way, this treatment way that you present is, yeah, it's naturalized and it's trying to be a good steward, and it enables them to see that, oh, hey, this is what we really need to be doing in these examples, in these cases, and this is the maintenance, for putting in and for their operations, and this is good. This is a good touch point for Wade to bring these stewardship ideas and to introduce, and this is my whole personal ministry with stewardship, is trying to reach out to these different type of sectors where all this is happening. This shouldn't be some small group of mystics around a campfire saying this is how we restore it. This should be something like you're showing, like you're sharing. It might not look like natural stream restoration, but it's certainly something that the larger community, someone whose interest is human goods and services, can embrace this. And this NIPWIF funding is educating them. So when they do this in the future, they can go, oh yeah, let's get some more NIPWIF funding. Or they can say, hey, let's do it right. Wade showed us how to do it. Let's do it that way. So that's cool. Thanks, Wade.
Yeah, and another thing to point out, this is the most cost-effective solution too. So this was low bid. You can use anything you want to. So they had the opportunity to use sheet piles. So you got a lower cost product that provides, it's more sustainable. And this is on the opposite side of a river walk. It's very visible. So you get a lot of other things there too.
How much was it per foot, maybe, or roughly?
167 feet, $167 per square foot in place.
Nice.
Yeah, square foot face. Here's another similar project, and just to give you a scale, that's 2 men there. Those little green dots are 2 men. So to get the scale of this thing, I mean, this is it's hard to believe that there are places like this in Alabama, but that's a 30-foot drop off. And this is on the Tom Bigby River, and its flows are not natural either. At times it will be 30 foot deep for nearly a year. At times it will be, 1 foot deep for 3 years. It's their release schedules are it really plays havoc on any kind of natural vegetation growing there. And you had this one of a kind power structure that was you can see how scary that was getting. And again, we needed it in fast, and this was a emergency. We don't care what it takes, what's your low bid, and we did this natural measure. Again, for scale, you can see this person here. So the scale is really hard to see. It was not uncommon to be there often, and you see a 60-foot tree floating down the river that just disappears, or the whirlpools that would develop here, just incredible. And this was put in. This so far exceeded the manufacturer's recommendations that we really had uh, sell this, that this is only a temporary thing. We were just hoping to get it through one season because it so exceeded any kind of recommendations that anybody had. But it's still there today, and I don't know. I don't have any more photos, but I went and checked it out a couple years ago, and the people on site could not believe it was. They couldn't believe. They thought it was natural, and I had to go and get a shovel and dig up part of it to show them that this was a mechanically stabilized wall. There's nothing natural about it, but you do have the trees growing up through it. The biggest problem we have here again is maintenance. The trees are growing through it, but the power company wants to cut the trees as soon as they get up, and the people going down doing that maintenance, they don't realize that this is not natural. Another little thing that I found that's been helpful is micro pools. They're little hotbeds of ecological activity that you can put in. They can provide some downstream erosion control, and a lot of places we have where we have to drop off these pipes down steep slopes right on the edge of a wetland, and we can pre-scour out a pool to serve as energy dissipation, put some juncus around it, and 10 times better than just plain erosion control, and it provides some ecological benefit too.
Juncus is my friend.
Yeah, juncus. Used to in college, you put in the pipe, and then at the end of the pipe, put riprap everywhere. Now I put in a pipe. If I do, I put juncus everywhere. Juncus can cover a world of sins.
I've always liked doing that where you have the outfall below your water. Like, so you have your outfalls basically, yeah, unburied. It just gives it a more natural look as well, and I mean, it provides that extra level of dissipation, and it's a great idea.
Yeah, and a lot of times these streams, this is downstream of this, your stream is down cutting a lot, so it's actively going down. So also, it provides okay, if we do lose the stream, we're really at the area that we need to be in the future. You kind of got planning ahead for some problems. So these step pools, they're also known as coastal outfall structures, step pools, storm conveyance structures. They provide attenuation, energy dissipation, treatment, safe abeyance, aesthetics. That's what our version of it looked like when it's in place. It's kind of interesting. Uh, the the people at this location where we put this in, they thought it was put in as a sort of a landscaping feature because it did look a little bit different, and they thought it was an amenity. They saw it as an amenity, but it was it was purely a stabilization measure. And you can see the profile. You've probably seen this before, but these splashy streams to provide some sand in there for you to redevelop a base flow helps the stream almost as much as the measure itself, in my uh, belief, because it allows that natural vegetation to grow downstream more in places where it should. Again, this is uh, coastal Alabama, and you have these big 20-foot drops right beside a roadway, which is uncommon for us. And this was a retirement village. They couldn't keep this retirement village occupied because there was this big gully, and people thought it was going to impact their houses.
Hmm.
So the traditional way to fix it would be, put in a concrete pipe in the right of way. We already had the right of way. We knew what size pipe. It was very simple design. Problem is now you would have a gully, and then what little buffer uh, you had there, you got rid of the buffer. So these people that moved from all over. This guy was from New York. He moved down here for retirement, where he did have this nice vegetated buffer. We were going to destroy it and take out the trees. So instead, we put in step pool storm conveyance structure, and the whole story about the streams. They don't stay straight, and they start out, and then when they down cut, you have problems. But step pool storm conveyance system, there's some very good design recommendations out of Anne Arundel County that makes people like me who like a method that you can prove that it works on paper, whether it does in the field or not. You got a solid, this is the way you do it. It's been tried over and over again. It works. And if it doesn't, it's not because I didn't give it the best shot. There's a very definitive workflow that you can follow, a standard of care that's very, very well documented that you can go through. Here's a post-construction cross-section, again, reconnected to the floodplain, pre-scouring out some holes, fitting it to the area. This was a part of a whole area that we were able to delist, and with these naturalized stabilization measures, it's a lot of times it's hard to talk about risk and what is your design storm. And in this little micro area that we worked on in Joe's Branch, nearly every kind of design method or storm or whatever, we tried it in all of them. So it was almost like a proof of concept here, and so far everything seemed to work. But we had quite a range, everything from a reinforced channel, 100-year design channel, down to just a reference reach at about $50 per linear foot. Just putting in a very minor wood grade control. We used all those methods. Here's a little bit more of an animation how it looks going in. Again, it doesn't look like this. during construction, but you can see a little bit more about how the riffles and boulders and all work together to dissipate that energy. This is on about a 7% slope, valley slope. So and there's no there it's all sand here, sand and clay. So you need that rock to hold it together. Here is that
That was a fancy animation, Wade.
Yeah, it was.
so
Oh, that's nice.
yeah. Here's this is what that golf course looked at like when I first put it in. These were some soft, not limestone rocks. Sandstone is what I call them. I don't know if that's really what it is, but we were able to go back and paint these with buttermilk and moss, and it grows. That moss grows on these rocks, and the golf course just loved it because it gave that great aesthetic.
You painted the rocks with buttermilk and moss. So tell me how you paint a rock with moss.
You get buttermilk,
Mhm.
you get some moss that's growing in the area that grows well, put it in a blender, and you use it just like paint with a paintbrush. You paint it on there.
Wow.
So like this was like I've done this a whole bunch of times in the past. Or how did you come up with it? I've never heard of painting a rock with buttermilk and moss before.
And if you knew how my mind works, I'm sure somebody told me somewhere along the way, but it was a lot of times just, oh man, let's see what happens.
Yeah,
And that's what happened. I mean, it grows on rocks. So
that's cool.
yeah.
How'd you keep it on there? Like when, I mean, with the flow in the channel, did you only paint the rocks that were above the water line, or
Um,
did you place all the
I did-
rocks first and then paint them? Or, I mean, did you paint them first and then place them?
well,
Or-
painting was probably it was more like splashing it out there and
Okay.
you
You didn't
know
actually
wherever
like
it
use like a brush or a rag. You just
yeah.
kind of threw it out there. All right.
Yeah, and it was more. I don't know if this can work. Let's don't spend a lot of time on it, but if it does, it'd be kind of cool.
Yeah,
So,
sounds like something you could kind of hide or seed on.
Yeah.
yeah,
It's an interesting idea.
Oh, we did that on our deck to try to get stuff to grow in the on the grout and cover up, make it naturalize a stone patio. Paige Baker told me that she did that at a memorial site. They made a cairn for somebody and they put buttermilk and yeah, that's a weird trick. It works great though, and it keeps itself. You don't have to feed it or anything. It just kind of it lives off of the rock, I guess. I don't know.
yeah. Another thing about these natural stabilization measures, our pollutant on this project was sediment. On this project, we had higher sediment flows post development, but we did have a reduction of almost an order of magnitude um, post downstream. So post upstream, we had higher sediment flows coming in. Post downstream, we had order of magnitude less. So we had 97% suspended sediment was reduced by 97%. This was two projects. So, I was a little bit suspicious about these results, but we did another phase and we got similar results. So a little bit more confident that it really worked for those. We didn't have a lot of places or more places use these for nutrient reductions, and we didn't have those nutrient reductions. I don't really know why that was the case. We maybe didn't have uh, enough carbon in the sand or something, or I'm not sure what happened there, but we didn't have the nutrient reductions which that wasn't what we were after, but you would have thought you would have had some higher nutrient reductions, but our sediment, suspended sediment was
Did
greatly.
you change your backfill? Do you have anything that was very high in carbon for backfill?
We actually no, but we mixed. We mulched all the trees and then we mixed it in. We were shooting about with it for about a 20% wood and sand mix.
Yeah, so it might just be that your carbon nitrogen ratios were a little bit off for the biological treatment. We used to add a little bit of horse manure on some stuff in North Carolina years ago. Whenever we mulched up stuff, we put in a little bit of horse manure just to get the carbon nitrogen ratio to the point where you can get some sort of seepage and treatment. So of course that's a whole nother cell when you tell somebody to put in your water
Yeah.
treatment facilities, but
That would make sense. Yeah, but this was kind of, and plus the wood was sort of green still at the
yeah,
time.
yeah, same thing. Yeah, whereas if you put the I think the carbon nitrogen ratio on horse manure, if I remember, it was 20 to 1. So it was still pretty high carbon, but it's just enough nutrients that you could kind of put in there, so it would promote biological decay and kind of give a place for biology to start instead of just starting from green wood.
So thank you for allowing me to go through that.
Yeah, it's great. I appreciate it, Wade.
Yeah. Thanks for indulging me.
No, that's great, man. That's cool.
I wanted to say, just have a high appreciation for what you're demonstrating there, Wade. And I don't even think we need to pre-apologize if this isn't restoration. There's a broad spectrum of ways we can manage our waterways, and kind of what you're demonstrating is really variation of bioengineering that emerged in the 90s. When we started including vegetation in our treatments. Several of your examples were really like a bank stabilization project. We're not remanaging plan form. It didn't seem like you had vertical degradation issues. So really the issue you're trying to solve is the slope. And you've got the internal mechanically stabilized earth that depending on your slopes, it's just primarily a geotechnical issue. You got to have the internal strength, and then facing it up with natural a veneer, bio veneer, if you will. So and that's been my experience too. Ran the stream restoration program in Austin, and we were using that term. We tried not to be too apologetic about it, but we were trying to restore some of the function, restore the stability, and make it an ecologically functioning system. I get to be able to do the same thing as you, just come back and people look at it and it's like, well, what stabilization? What are you talking about? You almost got to go in there and dig and say, see, we've got some unnatural stuff in here, but you're really setting it up to take care of itself. And so I just wanted to say I have a lot of appreciation for that. We've done a lot of that work down here as well, and let's just keep promoting to do the best we can in these situations. There's the restoration or sustainable stream management, our community. I guess when you say stream restoration, it doesn't need to be a binary thing. It either is or isn't. There's all sorts of levels, and it's want us all to encourage and support each other just for trying to do things better. And I just can relate to a lot of the examples you showed. Almost every one, different variations. Like we tried the dirt bags on a few projects, but that's really just a different variation of, say, fabric encapsulated soil lifts, except where you're importing the units, where the FES, is kind of integrated into the internal stabilization, but functionally doing the exact same thing, facing it up with dirt and veg, let the trees grow. And so I think we need to, hold this stuff up, because one thing I've also observed more recently, and I retired from the city a few months ago, and kind of getting more out into the community, I guess within, our community and internally at Watershed, everybody's already thinking this way. But once I get out and start talking to others, it's just not as universal as I'm used to thinking, the mindset. Some guy was asking me in the field the other day, so is rock riprap good for flood control? And I'm like, well, we got to have a conversation. What are you talking about? What are we trying to do? Context. The rock is our erosion control to some degree, but just to say good or bad for flood control is, kind of starting at a, what does that even mean? So, it's a lot about educating others, and I know that's part of the forum of this group, and being able to talk about, the way we, manage these systems. And there's a lot of ways to get there, and it depends on context and what the problem is and what you're trying to do. So just high-fiving you for what you demonstrated today.
Yeah,
We're
I
gonna-
want to piggyback. Hey, oh, I didn't even let Wade respond. But yeah, Wade, you got a diverse background, and this isn't like Morgan said that, you know, we can't just keep this in like a small circle. You know, it came out like, oh, hey, Roskin's stuff. Yeah, this is the solution. This is the pill, you know, and then people just run around and apply it. But what it's going to take is people like you who understand your community, who understand and at that level and bringing solutions. And like, you know, you said, I'm not an expert. You have a lot of breadth of expertise, and that pairs up well with the depth, and you know who to ask what questions. And that's the kind of practicing and practitioners we need. You know, the big companies aren't going to go out and solve the problems of the world. Sometimes their interest is otherwise. So I love to see that you're bringing these successful solutions to these sectors that really need it. I had a question about specifically the slope stabilization one. Did they coordinate with you on any specific planting plan, or were you like, hey, yeah, we'll just use the, you know, the annual rye or the fall mix?
We, let's see, we did, we did have a particular, seed mix, but it was something that we come up with. And it wasn't wasn't anything that the client, recommended. Also had, a lot of these, I'm using, a temporary seed mix, which, I've heard a mayor decide, call it, a bunch of weeds you put out there, but it's a native temporary seed mix that I've put on a lot of these that, I mean, it shoots up, and it's native, and it's a temporary mix. It comes up real fast. But
Yeah.
I think, I hope that answered your question.
Yeah, it does. You know, weeds is anything anyone decides it is. It's actually, you know, it's a weed only if we decide it is. But my thought was that slope is so steep that it's kind of hard for people to go up and down that slope. And, you know, if you get some sprayers out there, they're going to go, no, I'm not going down that slope. And I like that. And I also, you know, I hope that maybe we can discourage them from trying to manage trees and, you know, teach them that maybe the trees on that slope aren't so bad. You know, if they don't really threat, I mean, their binary mindset of like power line easement, the horizontal line work says no trees from, you know, 25 or 100 feet across or whatever their easement boundary is. So maybe they can learn that, you know, that these trees are not a bad thing on those slopes, as long as they don't threaten their power lines. In fact, it might.
Yeah, it's not. It's really an education deal. They agree with that. It's just the guy out there that just started 3 months ago that's in charge of cutting the vegetation. It's hard to tell that guy, and this is the way it was in a lot of those cities. It's hard to communicate to that guy, hey, cut this area, but don't cut that area. That was the biggest obstacle.
Yeah,
It's
and
almost like the maintenance is the problem, but it's over maintaining is the problem. If you'll just leave it alone, uh, please quit doing what you're complaining about doing. We'll all be good.
yeah, you know, I kind of, my wish list is like these utilities would embrace, or at least realize that it's cheaper for them to not maintain, and it's better for them and their asset management in some cases to let the vegetation develop, and you know, and then maybe they can come up with an alternative. You know, wherever you have a stream crossing, this is how you manage it versus like, you know, we're just going to drive this line. You know what I mean? Just you have people show up and crews, they show up at the day and they're like, oh, these are my list of sites and this is where we're going out to load up the poison and the bush hog and let's go. But, oh, we've got the stream crew is going to hit these crossings. I mean, a lot of utilities have a little bit of a shift in the mindset when they get to those tie-ins, quote unquote, whether it's pipeline or otherwise. So I'm just hopeful that the power line industry and a lot of these linears, because I feel like it's a huge factor in our overall nation's stream health is how these utilities are managing their corridors. So I applaud that. Yeah, what Buyer said. Yeah, I'm on board. Yeah, good. I love it.
It's really a programmatic thing. I mean, you've got to have the buy-in from the entity, collectively. Because yeah, these vegetation management programs, they have, like you said, they have their spots in the city. We have 800 vegetation control sites. A lot of those are detention ponds. We're changing the way we do that. Let's try to do some, basically meadows in the detention ponds, but also I think we had a huge reduction in our citywide erosion sites when we implemented what's called the Grow Zone program, where we identified locations where, yeah, we've been mowing for decades. And, when I first started working there, it's like, oh, we have these horrible erosion problems here. Look at this. But, 20 years later, you let it grow over and it's like, well, what's the problem? And so, but it's context sensitive. You have critical points like that thing you were saying, Josh, and you've got crossings you got to keep clear. But just the general programmatic mindset, we can move to a less maintenance regime. It's going to be cheaper, better use of the public funds, and it's all context. Sometimes
What do you think drives that programmatic mindset? Do you think it's just like this is what we've always done, or is there an element of of insurability and risk that that
inertia from the 80s is kind of my experience. Like I'm helping inventory all the growth, the Mo sites in City of Austin. It's like, well, how did these even get on here? Well, somebody complained back in 1991 that there was debris in the channel. Well, our solution to that would be, at that time, get out the weed whackers and go clear it, and then it stays on the list in perpetuity. So I think a lot of it just inertia, and it takes somebody inside wanting to be proactive and reevaluate those practices. But it happens at a programmatic